For me to keep my job and be able to keep my job for so many years, it's been about adapting with my vision loss.
Blind Abilities presents essential worker Nick Dambrosio.
When the whole pandemic started, the store was like in a frenzy. There were moments of high anxiety and high stress where I said to myself, if there is no regulation and if things do not change, I am not comfortable.
Remaining independent for 22 years on the job and remaining essential to his community throughout the epidemic.
I never suppressed the feelings of fear that I have. And when it did become overwhelming for me, I went to the back. I took a breather. I acknowledged that, this is getting a little too crazy and I'm kind of frightened and a little bit not secure in my environment and needed to take a break. And I told my managers about it. And, then of course changes happened and things got a little bit safer.
For more podcasts with the blindness perspective, check us out on the web at www.blindabilities.com, on Twitter at blindabilities, and download the free Blind Abilities app from the App Store and the Google Play Store. That's 2 words, Blind Abilities. And enable the Blind Abilities skill on your Amazon device just by saying Enable Blind Abilities. And now, without further ado, here's Nick Dambrosio.
And then people were like, but sir, the line is in the back. And I keep telling him, yes, but I work here. And there's always like a sigh and everybody's freaking out that, oh my God, the blind guy is actually working at the pharmacy. So that's been kind of weird.
They say they're a dying breed. They pull themselves up by their own bootstraps. They never talk about an honest day's work until the work is done. Welcome to the Blue Collar Blind.
Welcome to Blind Abilities. I'm Jeff Thompson, and today we're talking across the border. We're going up into Canada, up to Montreal, and we're talking to Nick Dambrosio. How are you doing, Nick?
Not too bad, Jeff. Thanks for having me on.
Now, Nick, this is quite unique. You're legally blind, visually impaired, blind, however you want to phrase it. With the epidemic going on right now, we're all on lockdown, but you are an essential worker.
Absolutely. I've been working at a drugstore for the past 22 years, and so this has been an interesting time. I've never seen anything like it before, I'll tell you that much.
Get in line. There's a lot of people. This is all brand new territory. But Nick, 22 years working in a convenience store at the pharmacy, that's a feat in itself.
I like to think of it, it's been a kind of like a progression. When I did first start, I had a lot more vision. And as time goes on, you get pretty familiar with your surroundings, your coworkers. I like to say that I work in a little island and that's my little world. It's almost like my own apartment per se. And so you get used to the products, get used to where you are and where you're situated. So it becomes more of a familiarity around me. It is quite difficult to steer around customers and deal with certain things, but with assistive technology, I've adapted as time went on, because for me to keep my job and be able to keep my job for so many years, it's been about adapting with my vision loss. And that's been more the challenge. And I can't say that people at work were not helpful, but they were also not dealing with my problem. And I had to go outside the box and start to, figure out things on my own and how to keep my job. And so far, so good. And with technology, I am keeping my job, and hopefully I can be working there for a few more years for sure.
Nick, I've known you for years. I remember you telling me the stories about how you didn't want to use the cane. Then you started to accept the cane. You started to accept all the trappings of being visually impaired, even from recognizing products visually to now you're using an app on your iPhone reading barcodes.
Well, exactly. There was a panic at one point because I would have little signatures on products that I would zoom in with the little vision I have to get a landmark, kind of like a landmark that we use on the streets. I would use a landmark on a product, see maybe a star or something. And then when that started to disappear, I realized I may be able to distinguish products within the same family, like within the Tide family, because I can feel the bottle, but I couldn't distinguish the different scents. And so then I said, I really can't do my job. And using a barcode now, I personalize everything. It took a couple of weeks, but as I was doing work, working with someone there, I would tell them, what's this product? And I would scan it, personalize it. So for the next time, I wouldn't need assistance. And a lot of it also was memorization of my area and knowing where products go. So I need to be focused at every moment and be aware of my surroundings and actually pay very close attention and actually, do as well a job. And of course, there'll always be some times where I'll ask for help. But with technology, it has really come a long way to help me do my job as independently as I want to do it.
With this vision loss, the progression, you've been able to adapt to it and adjust to it. But now we have the epidemic hitting and social distancing. Now, you were talking about how you like to, touch the products. You stock the shelves. You obviously you unbox the products. Your hands are all over. Your mitts are everywhere. I mean, yeah. But then again, you're in the aisles. There's people around you. This has probably been quite an adjustment for you.
When the whole pandemic started, the store was like in a frenzy. And there were moments of high anxiety and high stress where I said to myself, if there is no regulation and if there is no structure or things do not change, I am not comfortable. You have to understand that I have no vision to my right, very little. I'm legally blind, so I just see shades, and it's very difficult for me to see anything, remotely close to me. So I wanted to give up. And as time went on, I went to my manager, and then things started to progressively change. And I think right now, as the present moment we're speaking right now, there are limited people that can enter the store. So that makes my life a lot easier. Social distancing is still a challenge only because I can't see the person, but because of the low traffic in the store, it's doable at this point. And I do have something on my shirt that provides indication that I am visually impaired. So there is, a big yellow tag falling off my collar saying I'm visually impaired. So people hopefully can pay attention. And I, of course, have high acuteness on what's around me and in my senses, as well as trying to be aware of things at every moment. So it is a little bit safer, I find, compared to when it was at the beginning.
Nick, day in, day out, there's got to be a level of fear. How do you cope with that?
That's kind of like an interesting question because throughout my years at the pharmacy, I had to do social distancing in a sense. And while I'm doing my work, I'm like a horse race with the blinders on. I am so focused on my task at hand of picking up my stock, figuring out, using my phone, figuring out what I have in my hands, and then with my memory going to the area and putting the stock away. And throughout all of this, I have to be careful on where I'm going for my safety and not get into someone else's space as well. Before, if I bump into somebody, it was okay, but now it's not okay. There's that social distancing. And so there is a little bit of fear that comes with it now that I didn't really have before. Before there was a fear, but it was, it's like if I bump into somebody, I walk very slow, and my vision, I do have, some shade perception. So I see shades in people, but, my peripheral is not very strong. And so I might bump into somebody, and it's happened before, but now it's more urgent of a situation if I do, and I might spook somebody, or I might get spooked if someone is in my zone if I don't see them. So fear is still constant. But there's a saying that, a coward and a hero both face fear. It's how you deal with it. And I never suppressed the feelings of fear that I have. And when it did become overwhelming for me, I went to the back. I took a breather. I acknowledged that, this is getting a little too crazy, and I'm kind of frightened and a little bit not secure in my environment and needed to take a break. And I told my managers about it. And, then of course changes happened and things got a little bit safer. But for me, the fear factor is acknowledging it and trying to work with it instead of suppressing it. And I guess that's how I cope with things. And again, everyone's going to be very different, and fear can be paralyzing to some, and some people can deal with it and move on from it. And there's no right or wrong answer. I think the best way is that you will at least acknowledge that you have the fear and not suppress it, and then try to find ways to work with it in the long run.
What is your day like? I mean, you get up, you go outside. I mean, we're all on shutdown. We're all locked down here in Minnesota. But you go outside, you have to take transport. Then from transport, you have to get to the store. And then you go into the store. To describe that process that you're doing, I mean, basically the changes that you're going through today with that process.
Well, the first change, which has been a great change, is my transport, because now they're only allowing one person per cab. So I'm getting to work in record time. So the stores now are opening much later. So instead of opening at 8:30 like I usually do, they open at 10. So usually when I get to work around 9 o'clock, there's a lineup. So I have to cut through the lineup. And it's funny because every time I walk through that lineup, and again, social distance is difficult. So I'm coming, I know there's a lineup. I hear the ramblings, the talking. I said, sorry, I'm coming through. And then people are like, but sir, the line is in the back. And I keep telling him, yes, but I work here. And there's always like a sigh, and everybody's freaking out that, oh my God, the blind guy is actually working at the pharmacy. So that's been kind of weird. You get Purell at the front. I usually get to the back. Usually clerks and other managers set me up with a truck, either with stock, put it in the middle of the aisle where I work. And so from there on, I open boxes for a couple of hours till actually the people come in, because due to the COVID-19, we're opening later. So it gives us a little bit more time to get stock on the shelf, paper, toilet paper, in some cases, get it on the shelf right away. So it gives me time to kind of catch up on my work, get stuff that's a little bit difficult to get to the shelves, or some products that I might have difficulties with. And then from there on, do orders. I usually do orders with a coworker, and we go through the sections. And that's been interesting because we don't really do the social distancing, because we have to kind of, go through 30 feet of a section in order for the stores. But we do protect ourselves. My hands are very raw from washing them so often. And I think we're all conscious, and we trust each other that we were taking the right steps to stay safe. And as we speak right now, it is mandatory for us to wear masks at the store as well. And so, measures are being taken daily. And so that's pretty much a day in the life of Nick. So it's a lot of stuff on your feet, a lot of working, a lot of moving around, and a lot of assistance that I sometimes need to get to maneuver around. But for the most part, like I said at the beginning, it's like a little island. So I kind of know every nick and cranny and every turn and cut in the store, or at least in my area.
So what kind of products, I mean, it's obvious, the toilet paper probably, and the Purell and stuff like that. Let's just start with, do you see repeat customers? Are you starting to see patterns here, or what products are surprise to you that are disappearing quick?
Well, for the most part, the Lysol wipes, or, the Purell, the toilet paper was always an oddity to me. But pretty much all the Javel has been going really, really fast. One thing that baffled me the most is anything with the word antibacterial gets swiped off the shelf. And, that doesn't really necessarily mean it's better than regular soap. A lot of people want to get products with the word Lysol in it. And I understand that's important, but there are a lot of other products can actually clean counters and do just as good as a job as a Lysol wipe. There are products like Hertel with Javel, or using Javel, but some people are kind of, I don't know if I want to say misinformed or just panic shopping. And so they hear certain things and they come to the store. Gloves, of course, masks, and a lot of that stuff, we don't have inventory for it. It's been short for many weeks on end. And so that question is like a Groundhog's Day. It's like, no, we don't. When do you think you're going to get it? We don't know, because we're not even aware ourselves from day to day what the warehouse will give us. We place an order, but what we get are two different things at times.
That's great. So your transport, you just get in it. Are you wearing gloves when you go outside?
See, that gloves was an interesting topic, because I really never felt the need to wear gloves. A lot of people, customers even told me, like, why aren't you wearing gloves? And I said, if I wash my hands constantly and I don't touch my face, I don't understand the necessity to wear gloves, because if you're wearing your gloves and then you touch your face, it's exactly the same thing as if you were touching something and touching your face without your gloves. So I didn't feel that there was any added protection by wearing the gloves. And also another factor remains is that there's a special way to take off surgical gloves. And if you take them off like a pair of mittens, you're really recontaminating your hand again. So I always felt that, hey, I got to discipline myself not to touch my face. And yes, I may be touching many surfaces, but as long as I don't touch my face and I go back, when I'm going to my lunch or going to my break and wash my hands properly, I'll be fine.
I mean, 5 days in, every day you're doing this. I'm pretty sure you're pretty cognizant of your hands.
Absolutely. And they are a little bit raw. And maybe that's the only benefit to wearing gloves, is maybe saving your hands a little bit. But then again, as soon as you take off the gloves, you'd have to wash your hands anyway. So I'm not telling anyone not to wear gloves. If they feel it's an added protection, that's great. But remember that if you are wearing gloves, that you still need to wash your hands once you take them off, because you still need to touch the gloves. And so it gives them a little sense of, I call it false security, I guess it would be.
Mm-hmm. How about masks?
See, the mask situation at the pharmacy has been kind of odd, because it's only been since this Monday that it's been mandatory. Now, some of my colleagues, younger ones at that, were starting to wear them before I did, before they became mandatory. Again, as reports came on that it could be, because of the social distancing, I was actually getting a little preoccupied because I wasn't keeping social distancing because of my vision loss. So I said, maybe I should be wearing a mask. Now that I am wearing a mask, my concern is that, adjusting my mask with my hands, touching my face when before I wouldn't be touching my face. Now, the mask is there for one reason, to protect others, not yourself. So, I don't have the COVID, at least I don't have any symptoms, but I'm protecting others. I'm not being protected from them.
Mm-hmm. Our governor was saying that wearing the mask, it may not be helping the best of science and all that, but it does help from you spreading it a little bit. But it also gives, like you said, that false sense of security. It also keeps you aware of social distancing because you're wearing it. It keeps the awareness of why you're doing it, what you're doing, and to respect others. So that's really good.
I really believe that if you do social distancing and wash your hands and don't touch your face, I think those are the keys. Now, everything else you do on top of that is just, gravy. You want to wear a mask? Fantastic. You want to wear gloves? Fantastic. But if you follow the steps of social distancing and keep away, and also don't touch your face and wash your hands, you're pretty safe, in my estimation. Again, I'm no doctor and I'm not here to preach, but that's just the way I'm looking at things.
Oh yeah, we're all adjusting. It's all new territory. I'm just glad that they're starting to come down with some guidelines for people to follow, because otherwise it's you just left up, like the younger ones were wearing the mask. Maybe it was trendy. Maybe they were fashionable, the new fashion. I'm going to get some blind abilities mask. No, I'm kidding.
There you go. You can put the BA right next to it. There you go.
It is true. Once you have the guidelines and once you have leadership, actually, that people are turning to, they all start to understand a little bit more about it. I like that they're limiting how many people can be in the aisles, because then people kind of are aware that, you have the pharmacy there. That's basically a big reason why you guys are open.
Absolutely. And the thing is that there are people that respect these quote unquote laws and some that don't. But for the most part, I would say the majority of the population is respectful. And so, we are all trying our best. At one point, we were taking temperatures at the entrance with the Purelling of the hands.
Really?
Yes. The pharmacy started implementing an infrared thermometer. And so when we would walk in, I remember my colleague said, "Nick, can I take your temperature?" And I'm like, "Well, how are you going to do that?" And I lifted up my jacket and they just pointed at my wrist. They pointed the infrared at my wrist and they basically got a temperature. Now, is this foolproof? No. It just takes the body temperature, and there's been some information that it's not super accurate in the sense of, because temperatures fluctuate from person to person, and people have different body temperatures. Some people are a little bit extra hot, some people are a little bit extra cold, some people have a higher temperature in the morning or a lower temperature in the morning. But it does, if someone is really, really, has a real fever, it will detect like that person's super hot. So we also implemented of not using carriages, and some people got annoyed in the store, but that was also because we didn't want people to linger around too much. And I know that the grocery stores still have to, but you're dealing with bulk. And with a pharmacy, you can deal with bulk at times. You can order a lot of things, but we were trying to say, look, this is a drugstore, pick up a few items and let's keep this moving, because a lot of people that are waiting outside need drugs. And also we have a post office, so people are waiting to pick up parcels as well. So as you can see outside, it started to get a little complicated because we had 3 different lines, one for the store, one for the post office, one for medication. So, and to orchestrate all of that is still difficult now. Just to add more chaos to the whole situation, what's happening now is that a lot of what they've implemented is online shopping in the drugstore. So now through the website, you can go to the website or call us and say, look, we need this, and this. And the clerks would get everything, then bring it to the front cash, and then the person would come, they leave their name, and then we'd get their credit card or their debit card, and without them coming in the store. All of this is being done to just really alleviate the traffic that's going around the store and make it also more convenient for people instead of waiting in line for maybe 20, 30 minutes.
Yeah, we're all adapting to the challenges that we're facing, and it's going to change next week. I mean, if we said that there's a certain guideline right now, that could change in a heartbeat, but it's all for the good, and I'm glad you guys are getting some guidelines. You're staying safe. That's good. I like it.
And one thing I just would like to just mention is just be friendly to the clerks, to the pharmacists. For any intensive purposes, anybody that you go in the front lines, it's stressing for us. For me, I can say I'm a little bit over the stress and the anxiety for now. But, when you're in the moment and you're there at the beginning, I started to feel like a surreal feeling about the whole thing. And I don't know, but as time went on, I started to get a little bit more worried about my situation and saying, should I really be putting myself in this type of danger considering my condition? But as time went on, I really felt that the guidelines that I'm following are not foolproof, but pretty safe. And so just be aware of who is serving you and what they're doing on a daily basis to get the products or the services to you. Because for me, that I am visually impaired, I am a little bit nervous or anxious at times. But even my coworkers who are perfectly healthy young adults are worried. And I remember one of the young clerks that worked with me saying, look, I don't want to be here. I can make money tomorrow. I want my health. And that comment kind of stuck with me. It's like, here's a young kid who was actually scared to come to work that day. And he said, I can make money another day. It's not important to me right now. So you have to understand that the people that are out there are doing it for the greater good. And we're providing a service, and, just be nice to all of us if you can. Because I know that maybe stress and anxiety might be following a lot of people, but take a deep breath when you walk in that store and realize what's going on.
Big thanks goes out for you and everyone else that is manning the stores, keeping the stocks, keeping the lines, the supply lines moving, because people need this stuff. We're all adjusting to it. The frontliners out there, it's not just, I don't want to take anything away from anybody. We got the hospital workers, all the people that make that hospital work, the janitors, down to the cleaners. But when we look at the supply line, the products and stuff, you're there. Some people, I heard a story that some people run right into the danger, right into the fire, right into the hospital. Some people never thought twice. I was at the grocery store, and there's a manager walking around talking to all the workers and walking through the people, distancing. But it was just like, and this was weeks ago when everyone was getting a feel for what this newness was going to be like. But you're doing it every day, Nick. Thank you so much for sharing the story about this, and stay safe, stay well. and stay informed.
Thanks a lot, Jeff. I appreciate your time. And to everybody out there, eventually this will... Oh, there was one guy who told me a famous saying, "This too shall pass." I don't know, maybe his name was Jeff Thompson. I'm not sure.
Nick, honestly, I don't know what it's like. I don't know what my stress level would be like if I had to do what you are doing and you're doing it. And not because you're visually impaired or anything like that, but you're just doing it. You're doing your job and you're keeping those supply lines going for a lot of people. So I'm sure they respect that blind guy that buds in line every day.
That's right. I appreciate you giving me the time to talk about a little bit of my experience. And everybody stay safe. And thanks a lot, Jeff. And remember, this too shall pass.
That's right. Thanks, Nick.
Take care.
They say they're a dying breed. They pull themselves up by their own bootstraps. They never talk about an honest day's work until the work is done. Welcome to the Blue Collar Blind.
When we share
what we see
through each other's eyes, we can then begin to bridge the gap between
the limited expectations
and the
reality of blind abilities.
The realities of blind
abilities.
For more podcasts with a blindness perspective, check us out on the web at www.blindabilities.com, on Twitter at blindabilities. Download our app from the App Store, blindabilities, that's 2 words, or send us an email at info@blindabilities.com. Thanks for listening.